A diver reaches 40 meters. The water is calm. Visibility is good. His equipment appears to be working. He looks at his pressure gauge, checks his computer, and signals that everything is okay. But something has already changed. Not in his tank, not in his regulator, inside his brain. At this depth, nitrogen can begin interfering with judgment, concentration, reaction time, and emotional control. The diver may feel relaxed, confident, even unusually happy. And that is what makes nitrogen narcosis so dangerous. The person experiencing it may be the last person to realize anything is wrong. Because at 40 meters, the brain does not always warn you that it is becoming impaired. Sometimes it tells you the exact opposite. It tells you that you are doing fine. And when a diver believes that lie, a small problem can become fatal. This is nitrogen narcosis, and it may help explain why experienced divers sometimes make decisions underwater that seem impossible to understand from the surface. Not because they suddenly forgot their training, but because the brain responsible for using that training was no longer functioning normally. Today we are going to examine what nitrogen narcosis does, why 40 meters is such an important threshold, how it creates a chain of errors, and why the safest decision may need to be made before the diver ever enters the water. But first, imagine this. You are floating 40 meters beneath the surface. That is approximately 130 feet. You have been asked to perform a very simple task. Read 3 numbers from your pressure gauge. Remember them. Then communicate them to your buddy. At the surface, this would take only seconds. At depth, however, you stare at the gauge slightly longer than usual. You recognize the numbers, but they do not seem to stay in your memory. You check again, then again. Your buddy asks whether you are okay. You give the okay signal. You genuinely believe you are okay. But 30 seconds have passed. Your breathing rate is increasing. Your gas supply is falling faster than you realize, and you have not yet solved the original problem. This is not necessarily panic. It may not look dramatic. It may look like hesitation, confusion, fixation, or complete confidence in the wrong decision. Divers Alert Network describes possible symptoms of narcosis as impaired judgment, difficulty concentrating, drowsiness, overconfidence, euphoria, fear, and insecurity. The exact response varies between divers and may even vary in the same diver from one day to another. One diver may become frightened, another may become aggressive, another may feel so calm that the danger no longer seems important. That means there is no single warning sign. There is no alarm inside the mask saying, "Your judgment is now impaired." Instead, the diver continues making decisions, and those decisions may feel completely logical at the time. To understand why this happens, we need to look at pressure. At the surface, we live under approximately 1 atmosphere of pressure. Every 10 meters of seawater adds roughly another atmosphere. At 10 meters, the pressure is approximately 2 atmospheres. At 20 meters, 3. At 30 meters, 4. And at 40 meters, the diver is experiencing approximately 5 atmospheres of absolute pressure. The air being breathed still contains roughly the same percentage of nitrogen, but the partial pressure of that nitrogen has increased dramatically. More nitrogen is being delivered under greater pressure. That higher pressure allows nitrogen to affect the nervous system in ways that resemble intoxication or anesthesia. The exact biological mechanism remains complex, but the operational result is well established. As depth increases, mental and physical performance can deteriorate. Divers sometimes describe this using the so-called martini rule. The popular version suggests that descending another 10 meters produces an effect similar to drinking another martini. It is memorable, but it can also be misleading. Narcosis is not predictable enough to be calculated like drinks at a bar. One diver may notice very little impairment at a particular depth. Another diver may suffer significant confusion. Cold, fatigue, anxiety, exertion, poor visibility, task loading, and carbon dioxide buildup may make the experience worse. Carbon dioxide is especially important. A diver who is swimming hard, breathing rapidly, using inefficient equipment, or unconsciously holding back each breath may retain more carbon dioxide. Divers Alert Network notes that elevated carbon dioxide can increase the risk of nitrogen narcosis by increasing blood flow through the brain. That creates a dangerous feedback loop. The diver works harder. Carbon dioxide rises. Narcosis becomes stronger. The diver's thinking becomes less effective. He begins breathing faster. Gas consumption increases. The situation now demands calm reasoning from a brain that may be losing its ability to reason calmly. This is where narcosis can produce what investigators often call a chain of errors. The first mistake may be almost meaningless. A diver misses a turn. He misunderstands a signal. He forgets to check his gas. He continues forward for 1 additional minute. On the surface, that mistake would be easy to correct. At 40 meters, it combines with pressure, limited time, increased gas consumption, decompression obligations, and possible disorientation. The second mistake develops from the first. The diver realizes he may be in the wrong place but does not immediately turn around. Perhaps he believes the exit is only a few meters ahead. Perhaps he does not want to disappoint the group. Perhaps the surroundings seem familiar. Or perhaps narcosis has reduced the urgency of the situation. He continues. Now the pressure gauge is lower. The planned turnaround point has passed. The route back is longer. A simple navigation error has become a gas problem. Then another diver notices the problem. But communication underwater is limited. A hand signal is misunderstood. A light is pointed in the wrong direction. One diver turns. Another continues. The team begins to separate. The chain is growing. This is why nitrogen narcosis rarely needs to be the only cause of an accident. Narcosis does not have to knock a diver unconscious. It only needs to weaken one decision at exactly the wrong moment. It can delay the turnaround, hide the seriousness of a gas problem, encourage a diver to enter a restriction, or convince someone that an unsafe plan can still be rescued. The Maldives cave tragedy has led many viewers to ask a painful question. Why didn't experienced divers simply turn around and surface? 5 Italian divers died after entering a cave system at approximately 50 meters, well beyond the Maldives' reported 30-meter recreational limit. The investigation into the precise cause remains ongoing. That distinction is important. There is currently no confirmed public evidence proving that nitrogen narcosis caused those deaths. We should not diagnose the divers from a distance. We should not present a theory as an established fact. But we can examine narcosis as one of several hazards that become increasingly serious at those depths. At approximately 50 meters, divers breathing ordinary air would face a substantial narcotic load. They would also be consuming gas rapidly. They may face decompression obligations. Inside a cave, they would have no direct vertical route to the surface. If visibility deteriorated, they would have to navigate horizontally before they could even begin ascending. That is why overhead environments change everything. In open water, a diver affected by narcosis may be able to ascend several meters. As the pressure decreases, the narcotic effect often improves quickly. Inside a cave, however, the diver cannot simply rise. Rock is above him. He must locate the exit, maintain contact with the team or guideline, control buoyancy, monitor gas, avoid disturbing silt, and make correct decisions while managing the same impairment that may be causing the problem. Narcosis becomes more dangerous because the simplest treatment, reducing depth, may not be immediately available. Now imagine the moment when something goes wrong. One diver cannot see the exit. Another believes the exit is in a different direction. Someone's light disappears behind a cloud of silt. A pressure gauge is approaching reserve. The divers need to stop, communicate, identify the correct route, and conserve gas. But narcosis may produce tunnel vision. The diver stops processing the entire scene and focuses on one thought. The exit must be ahead. That thought feels correct. So he continues. Every kick carries him farther from safety. Every breath consumes gas at several times the surface rate. And every additional minute creates a more serious decompression, and supply problem. This is how an experienced diver can appear to make a beginner's mistake. Experience does not make the human brain immune to pressure. In fact, experience may sometimes create another danger: familiarity.
A diver who has successfully reached 40 meters before may believe he knows exactly how narcosis affects him. He may say, "I have been narked before. I can handle it."
But narcosis is not identical on every dive. A rested diver in warm, clear, calm water may function differently from the same diver who is cold, tired, anxious, fighting a current, or carrying out multiple tasks. Confidence based on a previous dive does not guarantee normal performance on the next one. Patty notes that narcosis may begin becoming noticeable around 25 to 30 meters and intensifies with depth. Patty's recreational training limit is 40 meters for appropriately trained deep divers, not a guarantee that every diver will think normally there. 40 meters is therefore not a magical line where everyone suddenly becomes impaired. Some effects may begin shallower. Some divers may notice obvious symptoms only when they go deeper. The danger is that impairment exists on a spectrum. Reaction time may slow before the diver feels intoxicated. Memory may weaken before the diver feels confused. Risk tolerance may change before the diver notices any symptoms at all. The diver does not need to feel drunk to be affected. Consider a simple gas check. A diver sees 120 bar. A few minutes later, he sees 90. Normally, that rapid loss would trigger an immediate response, but under narcosis, the numbers may not create the same sense of urgency. He understands each number individually. What he fails to process is the trend. The gas is disappearing too quickly. The turnaround should have happened already. The exit is farther away than the remaining supply can safely support. Narcosis does not necessarily erase information. It can interfere with what the diver does with that information. That is why training emphasizes pre-planned limits. You do not want to invent a survival strategy at maximum depth. You want the important decisions made before the descent. Maximum depth, maximum bottom time, turn pressure, lost line procedure, lost buddy procedure, emergency gas supply, and the exact conditions that will immediately end the dive. These rules protect the diver from negotiating with an impaired version of himself. At depth, the brain may say, "Just another minute." The plan must already say, "No." The brain may say, "The exit is probably ahead." The guideline must show the actual route. The brain may say, "There is enough gas." The predetermined turn pressure must override that feeling. Divers can also perform simple mental or physical checks at depth. Training exercises sometimes compare a task completed at the surface with the same task completed underwater. A diver may write numbers, solve a basic problem, operate a buckle, or complete a timed coordination test. The purpose is not to prove that narcosis can be conquered. It is to demonstrate that the diver's perception may not match his actual performance. A diver may emerge believing the task went perfectly. The recorded time may show that it took twice as long. That difference is the danger. The diver feels capable. The evidence says otherwise. What should a diver do when narcosis is suspected? The primary response is to reduce depth in a controlled manner. Even a modest ascent may reduce symptoms. The diver should communicate with the buddy, stop unnecessary work, control breathing, and follow the established ascent plan. No training material advises limiting exposure, planning the dive beforehand, and ascending when narcosis occurs. But prevention begins earlier. A diver should be trained for the planned depth and environment. Equipment must match the dive. Gas must be planned for normal operation and emergencies. The diver must consider workload, current, temperature, visibility, and the route to the surface. For deeper technical dives, helium-containing mixtures may be used to reduce the narcotic nitrogen load, with the exact mixture chosen by properly trained technical divers. NOAA notes that helium is used in deeper diving to reduce problems, including nitrogen narcosis. That is not something a recreational diver should improvise. Different breathing mixtures introduce their own limits, equipment requirements, decompression schedules, and hazards. Proper technical training is essential, but there is another form of prevention that requires no special equipment. The willingness to say no. No to a depth beyond your training. No to entering a cave without cave diving preparation. No to a dive plan that depends on everything going perfectly. No to continuing when conditions have changed. And no to the voice in your head that says turning around will make you look afraid. The most dangerous pressure may not come from the water. It may come from the group. The boat is already at the site. Everyone has prepared their equipment. Someone else has made the dive before. The guide appears confident. The diver does not want to ruin the experience, so he enters the water despite uncertainty. But once he descends, every option becomes more difficult. At the surface, saying no costs pride. At 40 meters, delaying that decision can cost gas, time, judgment, and eventually life. Nitrogen narcosis is frightening because it does not always feel like danger. It can feel like confidence. It can feel like calm. It can feel like certainty. A diver may believe he is solving the problem while making it worse. He may believe he knows the route while swimming away from it. He may believe he has enough time because his brain no longer understands how quickly the situation is changing. And when the confusion finally becomes obvious, the margin for recovery may already been gone. That is the lesson of deep diving. The ocean does not have to overpower the diver's body. Sometimes it only has to alter one decision. At 40 meters, the diver is breathing gas under approximately 5 atmospheres of pressure. He is using his supply more rapidly. He has less time. He may be approaching decompression limits. And the brain responsible for managing every one of those hazards may already be impaired. That is why depth must never be treated as just another number on a computer. Depth changes the gas. Depth changes the plan. Depth changes the consequences of every mistake. And sometimes, depth changes the person making the decisions. The diver may still feel normal. He may still signal okay. He may still believe he is completely in control. But at 40 meters, the most dangerous thing in the water may be the thought, "I'm fine." Because nitrogen narcosis does not always make a diver feel confused. Sometimes it makes him dangerously certain. Respect the depth. Respect the plan. And never let pride make a decision that your training is telling you to refuse.